I still kind of want to ask Cult of Ham a question. Like, I implore you, please don't get worked up, Ham. But
worked up.
So, yeah, like you always are. But anyway, what I said, like in my closing statement, you said was a straw man. What I originally said was, it seemed like as soon as a business opens to the public, a privately owned business opens to the public, that their right to discriminate and deny service as they please is overridden. That's what I thought that you and Geek's position was. But is your position actually that they don't have the right at all in the first place, or what? Like, clarify.
I believe a person has the privilege to open up a business.
But I'm talking about denying service, not the opening up the business in the first place.
I would say for me is that my point was just that once you open up the business, it's your private property, still your private property, but you get the privilege to open up a business and you get the privilege to serve the public and something like that. There's a different set of rules. Now, I will be clear. That doesn't mean that they don't have the right to not refuse to serve business for whatever reason and stuff like that. I will still concede that the business has the right to refuse service to anyone for whatever reason. I would just say that they will they'll face consequences for doing so or refusing that service and stuff like that. And that's where it's I would be on the grounds of this. If it's on the grounds of discrimination, that's so say it's an unjustifiable reason to refuse service, I think.
Okay, well, yeah. Me and the Sman we're not arguing at all that they should go without consequences at all. It's just
agreed.
So it should be free market consequences, private consequences, and not consequences in which the public sector, the government, has to get involved.
Yeah, as the government has, I think the government has bigger and more important, bigger fish to fry than to worry about the actions of businesses in that regard about the right to discriminate. Just like how the
government has every responsibility to make sure businesses aren't violating any discrimination laws.
Okay, since you're going to keep bringing up the law, I'm just going to say this. If I were the President of the United States and if I had the legal authority to do so, that provision where businesses don't have the right to discriminate would be struck out immediately. I would
that would take a Supreme Court case or just a repealing of the law.
I'm just saying if I had the authority. I know I don't, but if I had the authority, it would be done. Or
he would at least put the effort for it. He would at least put the effort forward to it.
Yes,
yeah,
and
he will have the power of executive order at least, as well as appointing as a supreme judge or any kind of judge that will side with him on that position. That's what the president can do and stuff like that. Otherwise, he just has to either sign bills that come across his desk that will fit that goal that Congress puts in front, but that'll be up to Congress to make those bills.
Yeah, and especially
I kind of want to ask. Sorry, I guess I'll let you talk.
Okay, so if I was a Supreme Court justice, if it was if it was a 4-4, a 4-4, and I'd be the swing vote, I would vote in favor of letting businesses have I would try and make it they would have an implied right in the Constitution to right to discriminate. If they're arguing somewhere in the Constitution they have the right to discriminate, I would vote in favor of it.
Okay, so at the root of it all, regarding discriminating and denying service, at the root of it all, you don't think that people have the right necessarily to open up their private property as a business, but they have the privilege. It's a privilege. Ham?
Here's a more fundamental question.
I kind of want Ham to answer the question before we get off too sidetracked.
No, it was related to the issue though.
Well, Ham?
Restate the question.
At the root of the issue of discrimination and being able to deny service as you want, at the root of it, you don't think that people have the right to open up a piece of private property as a business, but it's a privilege? That's the root of it all?
You have the privilege of opening up a business so long as you follow all the laws and regulations we have set.
So it's a privilege and not a right to open up a business.
It's a privilege.
Okay.
Okay, I guess that answers my question then.
Loudmouth,
I apologize. I apologize. Please accept my apology and forgive me, Ham.
Ham
And my ending statement.
Ham will hate you for life. So go ahead, Loudmouth.
What is the difference between a free man and a slave?
A slave has no rights.
A slave is not considered a human, I guess, but this would be a question that I have to like ponder
The right
on
to
to.
refuse service, okay? A free man has the right to refuse service. A slave does not. That is the difference between a free man and a slave. Whenever anyone says no, someone shouldn't have a right to refuse service in their private business, all right, they're essentially saying that other people are your property.
I got the definition of slave up here. A person who is the legal property of another and forced to obey them. Being made to follow anti-discrimination laws does not make you a slave.
It kind of does when you think about that.
It does not. You are your own person. You are allowed to do what you want within the confines of the law.
Okay, you keep bringing up the law.
So he's allowed to do what he wants within the confines of his slave duties. Okay?
Yeah. And Ham,
You are not forced to bake a cake. You're free to close down your business at any time you want.
that's bullshit. And you keep bringing up the law. So the law was changed. They're technically acting within.
Yeah, slavery was once legal.
Yes. And by the way, I'd like to point out that just
Laws are not slavery. I know you're some kind of ANCAP.
I'm not. I'm
not talking to U.S. man. I'm talking to Loudmouth.
Yes, the point is that just because something is against the law doesn't make it always right. And by the way,
I don't give a shit. Well,
you do still have the choice to follow the laws or not. You just face the consequences for not following the laws.
And if the laws were repealed, Ham, they're still acting within the confines of the law. If it were repealed, you're now acting within the confines of the law. So you can say you can't discriminate because it's against the law. Well, there are efforts to change that, and if those efforts, they are following the law at that.
Yeah,
but that's why I don't think that following the laws makes you the slave too much, I guess.
No,
you're not a slave at all.
Thing you don't have a right to refuse service does. All right, people should have a right to refuse service for any reason they feel like it.
Yeah.
So if I walk up to you and I pull out a gun and I say, I'm going to blow your fucking brains out, and you tell me not to, am I somehow your slave?
That's a false equivalency.
It is a direct equivalence.
No, it's not. A business, there's no harm. Like, if you put a gun up to someone's head that actually causes harm, you saying no to somebody.
The discrimination is a form of harm.
No, it really isn't.
I do agree with that.
You don't have to go into anyone else's business, okay? All right, if I can't knock on your door and like, hey, can I settle there for the night? No, this is my house. You don't have a right to. You're discriminating against me. Let me in. All right.
Your house is not open to the public, you idiot.
That's my point too. Yeah.
Ham.
Property, okay? It doesn't matter. Your private property is your private property.
At the end
is that private property licensed to rent out?
No. Well, actually, the question's directed at you, so you go ahead, Loudmouth.
What question was that?
Is that private property licensed as a business and to rent out the parts of the property?
Of course, you have a right to license out parts of your property. That's the entire basis of renting property.
Well, so long as you get the proper permits and licenses, and your property is up to code.
And also, if it is like a business that is renting out the properties, it would have like a lease contract and stuff like that. And that's where that has its own set of rules. Not saying that just because it has a set of rules doesn't mean that like in those set of rules includes a non-discrimination. But I guess in those there are some non-discrimination and rules that do apply to businesses that are leasing out or renting out property for dwelling. Now,
I'd like to point out.
if you have a personal property and it's not a contract, or like it's not an official contract, or it's not done as a business, if one person can say, yes, you can stay at my house, yes, you can crash on my couch, that's a different thing, because then that's not a business. That's what I was saying.
I don't really see any difference between a business and that scenario. Ultimately, all right, you have a right to refuse someone being allowed to come in your home, or not refuse someone. You can let somebody crash on your couch or not let them. It's your house. You can do what you want with it. You can let anyone use it if they want, and a private business should follow the same rules.
I disagree on the private business, because if business is open to the public, then it's a different set of rules as that is serving the public. I don't see why that should be.
You don't see why it should be. Well, would you allow a business to cook food in a kitchen that's like your kitchen, dirty with dishes everywhere? There's a little bit of mold under the sink. There's a spill that hasn't been cleaned up. That's not a false equivalence.
If you decide.
That's awesome. That is fucking hilarious. That's
by the way, Ham, I just got to point out, like, the reason that's a false equivalency is because that's something that actually harms people. I mean, letting businesses police themselves, something that actually does harm to the public.
Yeah, if somebody is like directly, never mind. I'll let Ham talk.
So it's you have all the rights in the world to do it. So the business and your own private property are one of the same, except when it might harm someone else.
Yes, and like the private property rights. When actual harm is done on that property against somebody else. That's where I would draw the line. But until then, and people don't have to shop there. So, and that's the thing, people don't have to shop there. If someone says, I don't want to serve gay people, you can, it's not going to serve me. Petition who will to try and get my money, because in their eyes, my money is just as green as that straight person you're going to serve.
So, the free market will solve all the problems. Well, we know it won't.
That's
actually, we know it will.
We know it won't. Well, what stopped segregation during the 60s? Was it the free market, or was it the government stepping in?
Hold on, that's bullshit right there. Businesses discriminated against minorities because they were forced to by Jim Crow laws. All right, businesses have no incentive to turn down paying customers.
No, bullshit. Bullshit is the guy in the picture right now who is a hypocrite. That's the bullshit.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Fuck him. That's
Yeah, I have to also outline that my philosophy is when people when there are different types of rights being in conflict with each other, that is when when private property rights, and specifically, for example, when it all becomes jaded. Like, for example, if somebody is being caused bodily harm directly by somebody's own private property rights, that's when we can debate what extent their private property rights extend to. And then it's the same thing as speech as well. Like, do you have freedom of speech in somebody else's privately owned business or house? I mean, that's when each other's rights, when people's rights become jaded. The person who
owns the property determines that. For example, I can't go into work tomorrow.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can't. All right, I can't go into work tomorrow and tell my boss to go fuck himself and then keep my job. I can't do that. Okay, that's just not.
You can't do that. This is where I would disagree. You can do that, but
you have to follow certain rules in their property.
Well, you agree to follow certain rules as an employee of that business, but also you do, in a way, have a freedom to do that. You would just get consequences for doing that.
Yeah, do that specific thing. My boss can't kill me for it. They can just say, "All right, you're fired. We're not paying you anymore." You know.
that's the thing. It's like you still you have the freedom. For all intents and purposes, you have liberty and you have everything to do things. But like where your liberty ends is something like that is where it will cause harm to others, and B also is like that just because you have the freedom to do something doesn't mean you don't have like freedom from consequences. We gotta be clear about that.
And the point is there are consequences.
Yeah, there are consequences to a business, for example, doesn't want to bake a gay wedding cake, okay? What's the consequences of that? That couple can simply give their money to a different business.
Yeah.
Consequences.
Or they can sue them.
No, that's bullshit.
That's oppression. Giving their money to another business.
It's not oppression.
That's free market. But if
the baker denying service is the one doing the oppression.
Ham, I gotta say this.
Every business has the right to refuse service to anybody. It's a given rule.
Hey, JJ, I think we established a long time ago that you have nothing wrong to say because you're an idiot.
If I don't get work for you, all right, that's not oppressing you.
Cut the guy a break, Ham. Cut the guy a break.
Hold on. If I refuse to re-shingle your house, Ham, I'm not oppressing you because I refuse to re-shingle your fucking house.
Yes, and besides, I'm not like this free speech absolutist, but I guess one could argue if they're being a smartass that you're violating someone's First Amendment right to say no. Could one argue that honestly? I mean, I'm just.
No, you can't. I'm a free speech absolutist.
I'm not.
And I believe that doesn't affect your right to free speech.
You're punishing somebody for saying no.
I think I sympathize with Jocelyn that this has just become a debate extension. I kind of want to get on different topics.
All right, let's just talk about that.
Fine, new topics.
Who's juggling dishes in the background?
It's Jocelyn. I'll mute him.